Here we are live Saturday night. John Pollock and Ting with you for our Backlash Tampa review. I am John Pollock and he's Ting. Wouldn't you know it? Hello, Wei. How are things?
Hey, John. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great.
All right. 6 o'clock show. That work out for you?
No complaints. No complaints. This show was over very early. And I've seen a lot of stuff tonight already. By the time we're chatting here, I got Collision in. I even watched a little bit of the UFC card tonight, and here we are. So we might talk a little bit about Collision at the end because there was a bunch of news coming out of that show. But we are here to talk about Backlash Tampa, and
yes,
history was made. The John Cena Classic. We are going to try our best to describe what the hell this is.
Again, I suppose not technically wrong. He could have announced anything, really, and it would have been some form of history. But, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some history was going to be made, and we'll try and translate what John Cena was telling all of us about a very strange event that's coming to your favorite app in the near future. But we will dive into tonight's show, which featured way more wrestling than WrestleMania did, and it seemed like they went way lighter on the typical ad load on this show. At least that was my experience watching this. This felt like a much different presentation than the two nights of WrestleMania.
I couldn't tell you about whether or not that's the case. I skipped through all those breaks, so I don't know how long they were.
Well, I mean, I was skipping through them at WrestleMania 2, and they were still, it just felt the percentage of wrestling, which was much higher on this show overall. And while there were still ads to be, navigate through, I just thought it was a lot less than previous shows. So maybe that was.
Would you say more typical of a B-level pay-per-view?
Probably. I mean, there's some of that. I don't know if they would necessarily have the inventory for this type of show. It just felt to be a lot more seamless. But again, I'm starting these shows later anyway. I would imagine people watching these live might have a different experience, but I found it to be less intrusive this time around. And just looking at the match times, like so much stuff got more. The opener here with Rollins and Breaker, it was longer than every match at WrestleMania except for the two main events.
Yeah, maybe not so unusual for WrestleMania comparisons. Just because that's a very different show, like there's more matches, more things to fit in, more fanfare, more longer entrances, right?
Yeah, but I mean, even this WrestleMania by WrestleMania standards was down on match time. Like, there's no way IYO and Asuka were getting this type of match last month at WrestleMania. They would have been working with, I would imagine, a third of the time that they got 18 minutes tonight. There's no way they were getting that at WrestleMania. So it's the double-edged sword. It's like they got bumped for Mania, but they probably got to have the match they wanted on this show, but it's a much lower profile show.
Yeah. That is the exchange. You're doing the match you want in front of a smaller audience with, I would say, maybe less discussion about this match versus a match that might take place on WrestleMania.
Well, tonight they're at the Benchmark International Arena. The WrestleTix final number was 14,633. WWE announced 15,215 with Michael Cole and Wade Barrett calling the show from Tampa. And the first hour was broadcast on ESPN2, and they pretty much got right into it with Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker, who ended up getting a ton of time here, nearly 22 minutes to open the show. And the beginning of the match was heavily focused on Bron Breakker dominating his former mentor, and he's throwing Seth around with Germans. He's talking trash. You self-centered piece of trash. I mean, this wasn't, he wasn't going into Sean Strickland levels, so that's at least one positive. I mean, he could have gone that route. And he runs the ropes for a clothesline where Wade Barrett calls Bron the human blur. Maybe that one will take off. The human blur. He hit his first of 3 attempted Breakensteiners. This first one was the sloppiest of the 3. Nearly lost him. Bron then runs around the ring, caught with a super kick, and then it's Rollins taking over, and he focuses attention on Heyman. He blows a kiss toward Heyman, goes for the stomp, but it's blocked into a gut buster, and then the spear gets stopped by a knee, so some good back and forth here. And then Rollins went for, it's the move that Ospreay always does, like the counter where he rotates over the back and just totally lost himself here. And Bron just kind of improvised with a standing moonsault, and they continued moving on. Rollins caught him with a buckle bomb going coast to coast across the ring. And then Rollins tries his superplex, and Bron turns it into the Falcon Arrow. Crowd is really hot at this point. Hits another Breakensteiner, and then goes for a third one in the match. And Rollins tries to land on his feet, stumbles a little, super kicks Bron, the pedigree gets hit, and then the stomp connects. But Heyman distracts the referee on the apron. So Rollins pulls out a chair. This prompts Theory and Logan Paul to appear, and Theory is taken out with a chair shot and stomp, and then he's chasing Logan to the back, but has to run back to break the count, and as he dives into the ring, is speared for another big near fall. Crowd was very much with this, and Bron runs the ropes for the spear, but runs into the pedigree, and Rollins goes for a stomp off the turnbuckle, but gets speared in midair, and then it's Bron running the ropes for the torpedo spear. There are levels to these spears, Way, and it's the torpedo that keeps Seth down in 21 minutes, 45 seconds, as Bron Breakker gets what was a relatively clean win, all things considered here.
I thought it was a very good match. I thought Breakker looked great. There were many comparisons made about him to Brock Lesnar, and I will say, like, maybe at this point to me, maybe more so than even Obafemi, it feels a lot more like Braun is the person to take up the mantle for Brock Lesnar if or whenever, he is gone. Because I think he's got a similar style based on intensity and just like freakish athleticism. He's got a very similar heelish character at the moment. And of course, the association with Paul Heyman. So this is very much, I'm looking at this as if this was his WrestleMania match and what was set to be, probably his big breakout at WrestleMania, and I thought he looked very good here. The win certainly continues to establish him as a top guy, and I felt Rollins, as usual, looked really good in all of this, but in this case, I would say maybe he looked good in 99% of it, with some very rare blemishes in the form of landings that weren't so flush, and also like that clothesline counter into the powerbomb attempt that was not very clean, or in fact completely messed up. Maybe just a nitpick, because he's otherwise held to the highest of standards. But I would say an overall very entertaining opener.
I had a similar thought. There were some blunders in this match, but not, to me, detrimental to the match overall. I still thought this was a very strong, 22 minutes that the two had. It was a good performance for Braun in this type of a big role. And that's two significant losses back-to-back with Rollins, with Gunther and now Braun. But they're clearly teasing him and Roman. So I think Rollins is going to be due for something big after these losses. Because I think this will have, some kind of rebound effect for Seth. But I guess the bigger question is where they go with Seth and the Vision after this. If they run this one back with Braun with some kind of stipulation, didn't really leave it open for too much, but maybe with such a close proximity to all these shows coming up, they get one more out of this.
I could see that. Yeah. Because of how long we've had to wait for this to just kind of extinguish it at a Backlash versus at least getting a little bit more mileage out of it, maybe even a trilogy I could see, with these two. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Kathy Kelly interviewed Trick Williams and Lil Yachty backstage, and she said that, I spoke to Sami Zayn earlier today, and he said he feels great. Your thoughts? Your thoughts on him feeling great? Trick says he's lying. I am the puppet master. I'm the vet in this game. And they make their entrance just a day after the resurrection of the gingerbread man, coming right after Easter. What a return to life.
Any thoughts on the segment?
It was just, I just thought it was way too much on this show. I just thought they dedicated so much time to this. I will say that the only thing I found enjoyable about this was that at least Sami Zayn was playing like the guy that is calling this out for, this is insane. What are we doing here? And I found the charm to that. And yes, it got the pop for the big rise at the end. I just felt it was a lot of time dedicated to this segment, and if I had been in that crowd for 3 hours and this was my big thing to end the show with, I don't know how I'd be feeling about this show at the end. It's just a lot dedicated to this comedy in quotations. But hey, AI is thriving.
Oh, it certainly is.
That's the key. So this match, which was produced by two humans, Trick Williams and Sami Zayn for the U.S. Championship, Trick got an enormous reaction, as he is typical of getting. But, man, he just feels like top-level reaction that he got here coming out with Yachty. And Zayn is all furious before the bell. They're chanting for Trick as he's stomping down Sami. And Yachty's got his candy cane kendo stick. So despite Kendra Lust's best opportunity, this kendo stick has not been retired from pro wrestling yet. Yachty has brought it back. So there's boos for Sami, and Sami just cannot comprehend why these fans are booing him. And this one guy had his ride or die sign up for this match. He's the one guy. He's willing to die for this man. Several attempts at the Blue Thunder Bomb, finally hit one, and Trick kicked out. Zayn then leapfrogged and does a fake knee injury, but uses it to lure in Trick for an inside cradle spot. And then Yachty gets on the apron. So Zayn, behind the ref's back, grabs his kendo stick, nails Trick. And this was the first of several near falls that the crowd bid on. A haluva gets stopped when Yachty uses the kendo stick, which sets up a Trick kick. And now it's Zayn's turn to kick out. And on the floor, Zayn is preparing, and he attacks Yachty, uses the kendo stick on him, and then DDT's Trick onto the steps, and he hit this haluva to the back of Yachty's head on the floor. So that was the end of him temporarily. And then Trick avoids the haluva back in the ring and manages to hit the Trick shot in 12 minutes and 52 seconds, retaining the title. So Sami Zayn has, I guess, lost this feud. I thought this was better than the WrestleMania match. I feel they got more out of it, the juice on some of the near falls here. But I wouldn't say these two have had classics together. But how did you feel about this match and in comparison to their match 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, it's, they've simply had more time. They have more chemistry. They have a deeper story. So yes, it bell to bell, it is better than the WrestleMania match, as I think it should be. I thought it was certainly successful in garnering the intended reactions. Crowd was very vocal all match long in support of Trick and also in booing Sami Zayn. So to me, it's regardless of how somebody might feel about the gingerbread stuff, I do think it's ultimately helped the reactions that they want for both men. And they were even like at one point chanting for Yachty to be involved when he did, which did kind of surprise me because I feel like Yachty is maybe the element of all of this that I don't know. I'm not really completely sold on. Nonetheless, like, this crowd was in support of him as this sort of almost sympathetic figure. On paper, it's kind of strange in that, I mean, it's a 2-on-1 here, like with Yachty and Trick versus Sami Zayn. But the whole thing is sort of like that. Like, on paper, Sami Zayn looks like the heel, but because Trick is so incredibly cool, and Sami now has sort of, he's complaining, he's doing heelish things like that. He's now fully resorted to cheating even. And also in the way that they've laid this out, by having Zayn initiate the cheating, by having him be the aggressor, and ultimately being so concerned about Yachty that it cost him the victory. Well, I would say they've successfully laid it out to, again, make you feel like you want to dislike Sami Zayn. So all of that was successful, but I agree. I think bell to bell, I didn't think the match was that great. Trick is capable. He's I think as capable as you would expect somebody with his level of experience to be at this point. He's certainly more over than anybody you would expect to be in his position at this point. But I think in ring, he still shows some limitations in comparison to somebody like a Sami Zayn, now sort of like, especially in this sort of extended match. So there of course is still more than enough there to justify the run that he's currently on. And in time and with experience, I think he'll be like even more capable as a wrestler. But I do think like this was a match that, doesn't reach that higher level that you might want out of certainly even a B-level WWE pay-per-view match. So yeah,
it's the latest example that I always bring up, that I think this is a perfect case for if these guys had 6 weeks of house shows where they're working every weekend. I think that would have been so beneficial for Trick Williams. And these guys, they probably had like 4 matches total, and 2 of them were on TV. I'm doing this off the top of my head, and this is where we're at, where it's fine. I think your view on this program is like, who is the more valuable asset here? And if you believe it's Trick, which many would, I think this has done great things for Trick, and working with a veteran that has gotten him over to a significant degree. He's done a huge share himself. But I also feel like we were at a period where Sami could have a legitimate claim of a title run. And it does feel like he's taken that step back where he's always going to make his stuff have an extra level of bite to it, and in the vein of the conspiratorial character. But it feels like he's back to that role now, as opposed to being elevated from where he had been a couple of years back. This is an entertaining role, but to me, it's not a championship level role, where he was flirting with that for some time.
Yeah, I had the same thought, and of course it's I would argue that Trick, I think, has more upside to Sami Zayn long term. Like Trick to me feels more
long term, of course. Yeah.
Feels more of the mold of like your WrestleMania level main eventer that I think WWE sort of wants to represent, the company. But I mean, Zayn, we're talking all the way back since WrestleMania 40, has been flirting with this ultra babyface run that I think is within him, that I feel like Levesque at points in the booking also seems to like want to push us towards, but this is taking him further away from that than I think we've had since the documentary Jackass feuding type of character. So I am very curious about where Sami goes from here, if this is the end of the feud, because I don't think he gets any closer to the title picture as a result of this Trick Williams, or as a result of this new heel character that he's sort of establishing. But I do think like there are Cody interactions that they have sort of like teased that could follow from this, that might continue to lead him towards that sort of title mix, but it seems kind of unlikely coming off of this Trick feud.
The main show started with the comedy match of all things. It was Kit Wilson and The Miz coming out, followed by Danhausen, who has the clone machine. And the clone machine goes into action and produces Masquerita Sagrada as Minihausen, who comes out, and it's our big payoff.
Yeah. So, I thought it could have been Punk. I thought they were simply going to do,
as soon as this clone machine appeared, I think everyone realized you were not getting a serious person coming out of this clone machine.
Yeah, I guess not. But instead, they decided to introduce like an actual full-time partner for Danhausen, we can assume, in a mini. And
you think this will be a permanent fixture to Danhausen?
Feels like it.
I guess. Yeah. He's one of their AAA guys that you could certainly have an association with. And I guess by extension, you have more if you need them.
Is there only one Masquerita Sagrada?
Well, this is like the El Torito, Masquerita Sagrada, who also wrestled as Masquerita Dorada.
Got it.
As well. So,
I see.
Yes.
Wait, so somebody who's already been in the WWE?
Technically, yes.
Yeah, El Torito.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. So he's back.
Yeah, like he's been attached to AAA, but he's back now, assuming this will be a permanent fixture. For what this was, like, of a comedy match, they had two great opponents here that you could do this for, and the crowd seemed to be into it, and Sagrada is a really fun performer. Danhausen did a lot of great comedy shtick. So, if you were resigned to the fact that you were getting a comedy match as opposed to you were getting a big superstar cameo, which was never advertised, I don't know what you'd be complaining about from this. It was just like a lot of Miz and Kit Wilson being like the punchline here, and getting the heat when needed, and building up to a big Danhausen tag, and then he would go wild, and the curse. They had this great spot where he went to go curse Kit Wilson, who pulled up a mirror. So he ended up, the curse bounces off the mirror and curses Danhausen, which was that was a clever spot. Almost as it was almost a little bit of the same spot we got later with the mist on the desk.
Yeah, kind of, except the mist didn't reflect back.
Yeah, could you imagine if she held a mirror up and then Asuka misted herself?
I don't know if mist bounces off mirrors like that.
Well, so Sagrada hit a moonsault off the top and then hit a series of Ranas here. He follows Kit up to the entrance, and then Wilson sends Minihausen into the cloning machine, closes the door, and then the smoke comes through, and out come a swarm of Minihausens attacking Kit Wilson. Like, this was totally ridiculous. Minihausen uses an airplane spin and then hits Wade Barrett's waistline onto Kit Wilson. And this is where the mirror points back at Danhausen. We get a super skull-crushing finale by Miz onto Minihausen, but Danhausen is in for the save. Miz gets a fire extinguisher, but he is cursed, and therefore the extinguisher doesn't go off for him, points it in the direction of him and Kit Wilson, and shoots each other in the face with the extinguisher. And then after a dive to the floor by Minihausen, Danhausen hits a pump kick, pinning the Miz in 11 minutes and 38 seconds. All of the Danhausen's minis try to disappear on the stage and just run away as they had another malfunction when it came to their disappearing act. So I found it to be like an odd placement on the show, like starting the main show, but I guess for most people, they're just watching this through, so it doesn't really matter where you put this ultimately. But it seemed the crowd enjoyed this. It was just full 12 minutes of comedy.
I thought it was entertaining, like, I mean, no big celebrity cameo or like superstar cameo, but if there was any sort of disappointment from this crowd, I don't think it was there by the end. I mean, listen, I think if it was simply just the, Minihausen match, and Minihausen looked really great, like he, as far as like in-ring abilities go, I thought he added a whole lot to the match, but I think this crowd would have still found it a little bit flat. But I do think like the creativity they started, to show after trying to stuff him back into the cloning machine to give you that swarm of Minihausen's bit, coupled with like Kit Wilson using the mirror to block the curse. I thought all of that gave this an unexpected level of, I would say, like, creativity that made the whole thing feel a little bit more like novel and maybe even respectable. So it certainly worked in like getting this crowd to a higher level, and I think they got a really loud reaction in the finish. So I think like the Wilson and the Miz have been great also throughout this entire feud. I mean, of course you have to like, I suppose there is an argument about whether or not like this should fulfill one of 5 match slots on a pay-per-view versus maybe something that might feel more deserving on television. But I also think like WWE doesn't really think that way. I think like, and nor do I think they necessarily should. They simply look at maybe rather than what might create the most compelling in-ring match, they also ask who are the biggest stars or who is the most over. And Danhausen is one of those. So I thought like the surprise was decent, and I thought it offered like an entertaining portion of the show.
There was an announcement that Triple Mania will take place over 2 nights on September 11th and September the 13th, where the first night will be on a Friday with a location to be announced. And I could certainly see one of these locations being in the U.S. The second night will be a Sunday in Mexico City at Arena Ciudad. And what's going to be very interesting is if CMLL has its anniversary card scheduled for September 11th or September 18th, because there is the potential CMLL's anniversary could fall on that Friday. So that will be something to note. They also made such a big deal about this being Triple Mania over 2 nights when Triple Mania had been spread out over multiple nights many, many times in its early days and in recent years as well. So it's not the most novel of additions for Triple Mania, but certainly after May 30th, I imagine this is going to be the big focused upon shows for AAA this year.
Still no American TV announcement.
No American TV. And we will see. They're really promoting this May 30th show hard. And we will see if they generate anything domestically for this product. IYO SKY and Asuka. This allowed Michael Cole to get in his Triple Tails lore at the beginning of this. And
maybe for the last time.
Mm-hmm. And when this match started, I was like, they are probably going to have to they're going to have this great match, and it's going to be so overshadowed by this crowd because they were deafening with chants of "We want Kyrie," and I felt for these two women. I also did not disagree with the crowd using this as their protest for Kyrie Sane as well. It was a very abrupt, sloppy non-exit for Kyrie Sane that you never got any kind of wrap up of this story. So naturally, this crowd, this was their forum to chant it. But to the credit of these two, like, they overcame this because these chants, they started loud, then they subsided for a little, then they came back. And I just thought it was going to be the story of the match would be the chants. But I would say after maybe the first 6-7 minutes, the crowd seemed to just they're having this great match and we're not going to take away from it by using these chants to kind of override everything.
I have to think they were expecting it.
They might have been. Yeah.
This is about the most focus you'd be putting on. Well, I mean, there's a gaping hole, in the story, and it's in the form of Kyrie Sane here. So, it's also the type of thing where again, I don't think they mind, at least not to the extent that I feel the whole R-Truth thing might have motivated them to take action. I see none of that here with the "We Want Kyrie" chants, and I almost get the sense they're just okay, let the crowd get it out of their system, and then we'll move on from it, and then it won't be a thing anymore after next week.
Well, Asuka's landing these huge kicks to the chest, and IYO just takes them and stands up. She double stomps Asuka, hits a missile drop kick, and gets the crowd rallying behind her. Sky escapes a Fujiwara armbar and lands a spinning wheel kick as both women go down. And Sky fights out of the Asuka lock, goes for an armbar, but then it's Sky taking the back of Asuka to apply her own Asuka lock, and it's Asuka having to reach for the rope. So Sky hits a Rana off of the top, but Asuka counters into a sunset flip counter and gets a 2 count. Great near fall. And then they move that onto the desk. And this is where Asuka goes for the mist. But Sky has the ultimate shield, Wade Barrett's notepad. And this blocks the mist.
And his laptop, his notebook.
It was the notepad, wasn't it?
I thought it was an actual laptop.
I thought it was a notepad, but I could have been mistaken. If this was the laptop, then this was a real commitment to the bit.
Well, I mean, those things aren't that expensive.
I guess not. Well, this is margins, okay? These can't just be frivolously destroying laptops here. So the mist gets blocked, and she hits a high cross to Asuka off the desk, and then this big acai moonsault. She goes for the over the moonsault, and she went over the moonsault, and she went over Asuka because she was supposed to land in an armbar situation, but totally overshot her. So Asuka just locks it on, and into the Asuka lock she goes, but IYO flips on top, and this crowd is all chanting, "This is awesome." Sky hits a German bullet train attack and then hits the over the moonsault and pins her senpai in 18 minutes and 30 seconds. And afterwards, Sky bows to Asuka, and Asuka just totally drops the character. She cries, they hug, they embrace, and then it's Asuka waving to the crowd. And I think everybody read this as Asuka's sort of official farewell. She's 44. She came back from that serious knee injury that took her out for a year. So not official, but I mean, I don't know how else you read it other than it certainly felt like the end of Asuka.
It certainly had that sort of feeling, and the maybe giving her allowance to essentially break character and turn babyface and to walk out this way, you would think wouldn't necessarily be something that they would permit unless there was some sort of more significant reason why they would allow it. So yeah, I mean, is there reporting out there that is suggesting that?
Not yet. No, not that I've seen.
So it could be of course, as a wrestling fan, you're expecting her to just turn on IYO once again, but
this is run its course. This feud does not need to continue with another turn or anything like this. This kind of felt like the finality to it, and
yeah, but the question is whether or not Asuka has run its course, and I wouldn't suggest that. I don't know if anybody would have suggested it. So I mean, of course, I have no idea what's going on in her personal life. Obviously, with the contracts these days, and with what she may have, I don't know, like maybe she's one of the people that they asked to, like, take a pay cut. I have no idea. But the idea of Asuka retiring was really not something I was even thinking about at all until maybe this final moment. By the way, it was a notepad here. This was a I mean, a bunch of papers, which really illuminated the white there. So it was pieces of paper. But I felt it was an excellent match.
How much are they going to auction that notepad off for? $5,000?
I don't know. Yeah, sure. Somebody would buy it. Yeah, I bet. Yeah. I thought it was an excellent match.
I thought the match was great. I gave him a lot of credit because early on I thought like this was going to be a story of like the crowd almost overtaking this match, and it was there, but certainly was not the case. I thought this was a really great match, and I think if you are a fan of this program, I think it was done better, the fact that they got Backlash instead of WrestleMania, because I think this would have gotten probably 6 minutes last month in the case of either night of WrestleMania. So, yeah, you didn't get the big WrestleMania showcase, but I think you got a much better payoff at the end and the post-match as well. You got to remember, you probably would not be doing this when you were doing like the Brock angle last month either, with something like this for WrestleMania.
Perhaps, yeah. It was, other than the miss, there really were no other shenanigans here. It was a pretty straightforward match, relying really on just in-ring abilities, and of which, you can argue these two are the highest of, certainly in the women's roster. Some might argue in the men's roster as well. So as like this sort of like groundwork versus acrobatics sort of battle, I thought like Asuka's submission wrestling looked excellent in this match. Obviously, I can't help but think about like maybe the extra level of drama that they would have achieved if there was like a Kyrie element attached to all of this, which is the entire story that they've been building up for months now. But instead, you should be happy at least that we got this straightforward match that went a pretty, considerable length that you can point to as maybe a definitive version of what these two could do in the WWE ring.
So then we cut from Asuka to Michael Cole announcing that Steve Kern is here. And we cut to not Steve Kern. This was very obviously Dan Spivey that they cut to, and then they corrected it. We get Dangerous Dan Spivey, Waylon Mercy here in the crowd, followed by Steve Kern.
Mm-hmm.
Waylon Mercy and Skinner.
Steve Kern, who smartened up Hulk Hogan to the reality of
That's right. That's right. Smartened up Hulk Hogan. He learned it from Steve Kern. And then out comes John Cena in his John Cena suit. And he is full head of hair here and gets a one more match chant. And he said, that makes me feel good. And he talks about his last match. The crowd boos this. They were not fans of this last match, but he was. He says, because that was an evening of opportunity, a chance for NXT talent to be in front of a large crowd. And we got to see Sol Ruca. We got to see Javon Evans, and we got to see Oba Femi, who got a massive chant every time his name was brought up. So Cena says, we've got to do this again. And he is introducing the John Cena Classic, a future show where the best of today will face the best of tomorrow in hopes of being crowned a champion. We're introducing a new title, and I'm putting my name on this event and my name on this title. It's like, okay. He then goes to explain that you, the people, are going to have the power to vote the champion of the John Cena Classic. It's like, huh? He says every participant qualifies. They might lose their match, but they can still be crowned champion due to their hustle and appreciation from you, the people. And we want to do this annually. He thanks Tampa Bay, a city that means a lot to him, and then he tees up the main event. I had more questions and answers about this championship that is basically, we're going to do some matches, and then we're going to do a popularity contest at the end, and whoever your favorite person is gets the title. Which begs the question what the purpose of these matches are. But unless they're just, these are exhibitions. These are performances for your entertainment.
Yeah.
Basically what we are getting here.
Well, I guess he's speaking about maybe the concept of like how we as fans, great professional wrestling matches. Essentially, like, who do you think performed the best outside of the context of kayfabe? You know, and that person would be champion.
So Sami Zayn is the United States champion tonight. By this logic.
If you feel like he performed better than Trick Williams, yeah,
I do.
Okay, then yes, yeah,
He's the champion.
Well, if fans voted based off of like that metric, I mean, who knows how these fans may vote? They'll just vote based off who looks coolest, right? Or who cuts the best promo, right? But essentially, it's just like it just seems like, you know, Cena seems to take credit for this. Like, he thanked WWE for taking a chance on this idea. So I mean, it sounds very much like a John Cena type of idea. In that, again, he seems to want to give the spotlight to your next generation. And I would also assume maybe your less featured guys on the main roster, you know, and in doing that, he's not leaving it to booking and maybe like the writers to determine who to push, but he's leaving it to the audience to determine who to push. It's just kind of odd that it's in the form of a championship or a championship title, which maybe brings up the idea of, like, you know, this more of a.
Is this going to be like the crown jewel title though? You just get it once a year.
Could be, yeah. Like, rather than an actual championship belt, I feel like, I mean, maybe an award like jorts might be appropriate. Jorts, yes, of course,
golden jorts.
But I mean, I'm not going to completely knock it until, you know, it's there. I don't think it's so confusing, especially like from our perspective, where like we actively talk about performances versus like the winners and losers, right? In these matches, it's just odd that WWE themselves are somehow going to recognize, hey, this person lost the match, but they are going to win the fan vote to be champion. You know, we'll see how they deal with that.
Yeah, they didn't even say when the show was. It's just going to be a show in the future.
Yeah. It's also like, I also wonder if this was always meant to be the announcement, or if like, because it's hard for me to think that like let's book Cena on the show so he could announce this like sort of unusual pro wrestling tournament, and let's bill it as like a history making event. Versus, I wonder if there was something else, you know, like it just kind of, it all feels really odd.
Guys, we're going to have a members-only lounge for Club WWE members. For the first time ever, you can meet superstars during the show.
Yeah.
Would that have been history
making?
I mean,
I don't know. I have no idea. I do wonder. I do wonder if there was something more corporate to announce than this, and maybe they just like checked the temperature in the room and realized how awful it would have come across. I don't know. That's just speculation. But just this announcement certainly is going to be met better. Like, it's, first of all, it's about wrestling, and it's about something that's not going to necessarily take the money out of its audience. But it's also not something that I feel would have been given this sort of platform or fanfare, other than just, you know, maybe having Cena attached to it.
Yeah, I guess it would represent like the clearest WWE presence outside of like your like Tough Enough and stuff, where like the actual body of the show, you're basically telling everybody like these wins and losses are bullshit. These are performances that we are building on, and that is strictly what we are judging it on. Like, this is much closer to like
Tough Enough. Yeah.
You're being asked to judge like a figure skating competition, where it's like you're assessing the performance, the routine, and overall popularity of a character, for instance. So yeah, it's a weird one, I think, but I guess there'll be curiosity for how this one goes down.
And sometimes weird is good.
Sometimes weird is good. Yes, yeah. This company can be weird a lot. Our next show, Clash in Italy, is in 3 weeks, a 2 p.m. Eastern start time. They are promoting for May the 31st, which we already have Cody Rhodes and Gunther, and more matches to come. They go to the pre-show panel, and it turns out that Danhausen cursed this audio team because we got no audio here, and they just went on for like 30 seconds before they threw to a video package. It sounded like the audio was going in the arena, but we could not hear anything at home. So
between this and like Booker T and Vic on Tuesday, let's just all blame it on
maybe
him.
This is a new gimmick. Maybe Shiloh Hill is coming to the main roster. This is his arrival. So Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu closes the show for the World Heavyweight Championship. Jacob Fatu comes down to the ring with a very special lei that was made by Haku's daughter Fatu's uncle. And this was a very nice white lei that I'm sure will be you can probably bid on by the time you're hearing this. This is a $10,000 lei.
Perfect for Mother's Day.
Yes. Yeah, a great last-minute gift.
Yeah.
Jacob Fatu's lei from Haku's daughter.
Mom, I got you a lei. A lei from Haku's daughter.
Wow, son. This is really lame. Wade says that the Tongan death grip, you don't just feel pain, you feel your life slipping away.
Mm-hmm.
So to the death, these two men are going to go. So Fatu instantly hits suicide dives to either end, and he's going for the Tongan death grip right away. And Reigns escapes on the floor, but man, he sold this thing like no one's business in this match. Just like he's clutching at his throat and gasping for air. There's these back and forth chants. It was not like this was 100% pro Jacob Fatu crowd. Like there was singing for Roman. They were doing the back and forth, but you know, as the match wore on, they were really getting behind Fatu here, and Fatu worked, I thought, a really solid match here. There's a Superman punch, and Jacob kicks out at 1. So, of course, that generates a big reaction. Cole compares him to Umaga, and then he's hitting hip attacks, and then gets hit by another Superman punch, this time for a 2 count. And they clear the desk, and the Tongan death grip is applied, and Jacob powerbombs Roman through the desk, rolls him into the ring, but Fatu gets caught by a spear. Reigns goes for another and is caught with the pop-up Samoan and a mighty moonsault for another near fall, and he continues. He signals for the death grip, and it's applied, but Roman keeps his arm up and goes to the eyes of Jacob, sending him into the referee, hits a pair of Superman punches, and then a pop-up into a third Superman punch and a spear. And I think everyone thought, okay, this keeps him down. But no, Jacob kicks out. This was a great near fall. And again, applies the Tongan death grip. But in fighting it off, Reigns rips off the turnbuckle pad and runs Fatu into the exposed buckle, follows up with a spear while clutching his throat, and pins him in 18 minutes and 15 seconds. So Reigns retains, but all of the post-match is focused on Fatu destroying this guy with the Tongan death grip. Cole says that Reigns barely survived. Sean Bennett, the referee, is taken out with a pop-up Samoan drop. The other officials come in, and they are attacked, including Adam Pearce, who is thrown out, so maybe some follow-up there. And Reigns is foaming at the mouth. Fatu returns, once again puts on the Tongan death grip. Cole is calling on the cops to come in, and he holds up the title over top of Roman Reigns, and that is how the show ended, and it seems a guarantee that they are running this one back, because this was all about protecting Jacob Fatu, and that Roman just barely escaped, and Roman's advertised for Clash in Italy, and I will assume that they're going to come back in 3 weeks with this, with probably, like you suggested on Rewind to SmackDown, with a stipulation, if it's like a tribal combat match or something like that.
Yeah. I was happy to see it. I mean, for people who might have like purchased a ticket hoping for a more definitive conclusion, maybe that you would have been disappointed. But like the idea that this would get a bit more life to, spotlight Jacob Fatu, I think is great, because he's just really done a remarkable job in about 3 weeks, which feels really short, for somebody's title campaign. So not only did he not acknowledge Roman, despite the relatively clean defeat here, other than I suppose an exposed turnbuckle, but he's not joining the bloodline. In fact, he's attacking him, and he's wanting another match. So I'm looking forward to seeing, like, in another 3 weeks, like how much more they can do with Jacob Fatu and how much more Jacob Fatu can do. The match itself, I thought, was a strong match. It felt like it went long, especially like towards the first half of it. But once they got into the big spots and the near falls, I found it very easy to lock in, and this crowd certainly seemed to as well. And certainly by the conclusion, I felt like they offered like a very satisfying match here. They have very successfully framed Jacob as somebody very capable of beating Roman Reigns and hurting him. And this also, I think, was notable in that it was a very different Roman from his first run as tribal chief. This is a much more vulnerable Roman Reigns. He is selling a lot more than usual. He did not have the Usos at all helping him in any of this. This was Roman.
Even though they were there, they were on the countdown show, so they were there. But their new gimmick is they just show up at these shows and they're barely used. They get 60-second backstage segments and the panel.
I mean, we can only assume that that's under Roman's instruction, right? Like, this is Roman, like, well, seemingly a lot more noble. Crowds are loving him. They're reacting to him. I would say this was more like a 60-40 Roman Reigns crowd is sort of my read on it. But the end story is that this is Roman barely squeaking by with a victory, which, again, makes this iteration of the Tribal Chief very different from the first. And as far as, like, making him a fan favorite, I mean, they've been incredibly successful. Like, Roman, certainly this month, and I'll probably say, like, even once Cody, starts to take center stage for the next pay-per-view cycle, I feel like Roman still feels like the biggest babyface in the whole company.
Well, that was the show. And, man, this ended at 8:45 p.m. Eastern time, which might be a record for a WWE show.
Well, in totality, it was still a 2-hour 47 show. But that's also including commercials, including, like, video packages and all that. But you could get through this, like, probably in 2 hours.
This is a pretty easy watch overall. I'd say it was a pretty entertaining show overall. Like, it was a quick show to watch, but I thought Jacob Fatu did really well in this main event position, and more importantly, the crowd took to him as a top level guy. I thought Asuka and IYO was excellent. I think that was my match of the show. I just thought they were great. Seth and Bron had a really good match. The comedy match was the comedy match. It's going to be I don't even know if it's going to be people's worst match on the show. Trick and Sami didn't do a whole lot for me. I guess that was maybe the low point. But I would say overall, I don't think you'd have too many complaints about this 5-match show for what it was, and you got several very good matches in this time frame.
I thought it was a fine show. Yeah, like I would say maybe like your criticism of it might be based on like how much content you actually got versus what you might be used to, for a pay-per-view, especially one that you might be paying $30 for, like that, like essentially you got the first hour free for many people. And then
you could have been spending $30 if you needed it on the ESPN app for 3 matches.
One of which was a Danhausen.
Now I guess you could argue your $30 for the month also includes Clash in Italy at the end of the month, so you are technically getting.
Depends when you signed up.
Yeah, I guess if you have timed it the right way. Regardless, these are wealthy fans that follow WWE. So
I suppose so.
However you want to look at it, but yes, you could argue that $30 for 3 matches. I could see that being a. But that's not the case for us. So I don't know. I had less complaints about it.
But for people like so it does tell me something though. Like I thought, as a result of this whole ESPN first hour thing, that they would load up the back end by giving you maybe another match or 2. They see no need to do that. Like they think that it's perfectly fine to give you 3 matches on the actual paid portion, with one of them being a Danhausen match. And I guess depending on the success rate of all this stuff, I mean, maybe they're the ones who have the data to back it up.
How many of these wrestling fans do you think they were really worried about that if we go past 9 o'clock on a Sean Strickland headlined UFC pay-per-view, we might lose? There's too much crossover.
I have no idea.
I think it's a very, very small sliver of people that would be crossing over, that have to be there for 9 o'clock for King Green and his fight with Jeremy Stevens.
Yes.
But that's the show. And yeah, I will say by the end of this show, I think we can definitively say that these Saturday night's main event shows, they feel like they are way on the back burner now. Like, I don't know why we need a Saturday night's main event in 2 weeks' time. I'm sure they will put together some kind of card.
Because they're getting paid to do it.
Yes, that's it. But I don't think they are going to be getting the kind of priority that even these ESPN hours are getting before the main show. It's like these are the priorities for them, and we're doing shows every 3 weeks. So that Saturday night's main event, it will be 2 hours of content, is my prediction.
Yeah. Maybe you'll get the start of the John Cena Classic.
I thought they would maybe announce that as like the theme for Saturday night's main event. At least that's a hook for a show that you basically have to build that show and Clash in Italy in 2 to 3 weeks. Between them.
Well, I mean, they've already started with. They already have the main event for Clash in Italy,
which is smart. I'm glad they got that out on Friday, and that's fine. Like,
and we could assume Roman Jacob in a rematch.
Yes.
Any other rematches you could see? coming off the show? Bron and Seth, maybe, yeah,
possible. I guess one of the questions is like CM Punk has nothing going on right now. So what? Like ultimately, like I think they are going to build up to Cody and Seth, or sorry, Cody and Punk. Like they've already started that build, but that's going to be like a post Gunther program, and I could see that being held off till at least like SummerSlam or something. So I don't see that being imminent. But in the meantime, like where does Punk fit in? Because he's sort of post Mania out of the picture. It sounds like Randy Orton is hurt, and that's why he's not around at the moment. So it does feel like the combination of like Jelly Roll and Pat McAfee leaving and Orton.
Oh yeah, that was supposed to be the match.
That was going to be this show, was the tag match. So them leaving and Orton, like I had heard he was kind of battling something going into Mania. They made that a focus of the story, and since then he's been gone. So it does seem like he's on the sidelines now as well. And ultimately, I believe Brock is coming back. And it was my understanding was, like, again, going back several months, was that him and Obafemi were going to have a series of matches, and it's been indicated to me that, like, that has not changed. It could change, but the latest I have heard is it did not change. So all of that is kind of on the horizon.
As soon as when?
It could be very soon. I don't think Brock is going to be gone for a super lengthy amount of time. That's my intuition that I've been handed. So your final thoughts just on the show? I did want to chat a little bit about Collision after we do feedback.
Sure. Yeah. Easy watch, you could say, but again, that simply means that it was short. I also felt like, there's enough relevance, in the form of like, you're getting your first Braun Breaker Seth Rollins match. You got Io versus Asuka. You got Roman versus Jacob, which was like very well built too. You can argue Seth versus Trick through the gingerbread stuff was very well built too, if you were a fan of it all. So like I think they put effort into it, but coming off of it, this did feel like it was setting up a series of like rematches rather than something that was a bit more definitive, with the exception of Io and Asuka, which we may have just seen Asuka's last WWE match.
Yeah, it's also a show like no Cody, no Punk. You had Roman, but no Obafemi. I think that is like, if you were somebody that like watched Mania, like how important did this show feel to you on a 3-week build? I would say if you watched it, you probably generally enjoyed the show, but it is going to be interesting to see how this ESPN2 hour did, because this is kind of a more normalized show post Mania, and it is on the weaker ESPN network, but that hour will be indicative, I would say, of like what a typical hour on ESPN2 does. So let's go to forum.postwrestling.com. Jermaine from Chicago is our first piece of feedback. I know he was glued to this main event. He's been counting down the days for this Roman main event. I'm paying $30 for this Danhausen match. You have 3 hours of SmackDown. You couldn't put that match on there? Oh, I forgot. It was the funeral of the gingerbread man. This Tongan death grip is so lethal that it's made for 6 men at once, but Roman can break it multiple times? Where's the logic? Lastly, okay, this John Cena announcement. I've been taught my whole life the goal of a tournament was to win, but now it's to be the most entertaining. Why even go for a pin? Now it's no excuse for not having a clean finish in this tournament, correct? Because winning and losing doesn't matter. This PLE was a 6 out of 10. I always like hearing from Jermaine. It kind of makes it completely silly to like try and finish your opponent in like 30 seconds unless you have the most incredible move to hit on an opponent, right?
Well, if you're an Obafemi, finishing an opponent in 30 seconds will probably still get you votes.
If you're Matt Cardona, are you going for radio silence right out of the gate if you could hit it?
I guess it depends on how well you could hit it, how impressively you could hit it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
A lot of questions for this John Cena Classic.
I think the questions will be in how it'll be presented, how the announcers will frame it, like he's going for the victory, but he might not necessarily win the vote, a bit later on. So like how will they talk about it? I think
they're just going to patch Paul in from Gorilla. We're just going to hear his raw thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay,
I wonder how much.
Go to the finish.
I wonder how much of this is like Cena just being like, guys, I have a great idea. It just came to me, like as I was like,
I was on a drive for 13 hours. I just felt like driving around the state of Florida, and during hour 8, I thought of this.
And now it's up to you to explain it.
Yes,
to everybody. All right, we'll see how far they get with that. Jeremy in Texas says, I thought the opener between Bron and Seth was very good. The low point of the show was probably Danhausen, but the guy is very over and very popular. I don't mind the shtick, but it felt a bit much tonight for it being one of the 5 matches on the show. The main event was fine. We're going to see it again at some point. This show just felt off. Certainly can't complain about the length, but maybe it's the pacing with all the ads for a PLE. I did not feel this way with Peacock since they had a free tier, an ad-free tier. Did John Cena basically announce a popularity contest? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, he did.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like, what is professional wrestling at its core? It's going out there and getting over in front of an audience that you would think in a perfect world would translate to your booker seeing that and wanting to push you based on how you get over. Not so much like it's...
It certainly does not always happen. And if that was the case, I mean, Tough Enough would have been won by... That what's the dude? That alligator dude? What's his name? You remember him? Like one of those the season with the meth guy?
the meth guy. Oh,
that would have been won by the alligator guy.
Season 2, it should have been mine back when I was Cabal.
Oh, that NXT.
Yes.
NXT.
Remember,
yes, you're right.
Cabal.
Yes. It would have been. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I feel like it's very unusual. But this is wrestling. There are ways to manipulate, to get the audience to vote a certain way. There are also ways to manipulate votes these days too.
I want to see some guy in this tournament that sandbags his opponent for real, like just tries to make him look stupid. And you could totally do that too. Like put in a veteran with like somebody who like just is brand new from NXT. Yeah. I mean, you could have a lot of fun here at their expense. Luke writes, Rollins and Bron was great. It's still crazy to me they ever tried turning Rollins heel. Trick and Sami was fun and better than the WrestleMania match. With the young stars, I fear the moment has passed for Sami Zayn to become champion. I was disappointed at first that Danhausen's partner wasn't the Boogeyman. I'm certainly glad it wasn't the Boogeyman. Marty Wright did not need a booking in 2026. But the match was simply a comedic masterpiece. Reminded me of Johnny Knoxville and Sami. I'm not going to put it at the level of Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville. It was a well-done comedy match. I will say that. Love the story of the main event. Fatu walking outstanding, but a loser. He is in John Cena's world, Jacob Fatu is your new world champion, right?
He would be the John Cena champion.
If we took a poll at the end of that match from those people in Tampa, who's the champion?
It would be Jacob Fatu. Well, no, if in a popularity contest, I still feel Roman would win.
Yeah, at that moment at the end, I mean, they booked Fatu to be like the world beater there at the end. But
who does the crowd like more? That's the ultimate question.
This is why we need the John Cena Classic. His question, with the New Day leaving the company and this fantastic Jacob Roman story in the same week, I think it encapsulates both Hunter's biggest strength and weakness in his booking. He cannot book immediate character shifting, redefining heels at all, with New Day, Cena, Rollins, and Orton all being big recent examples. But he is fantastic at booking tweeners who are cheered that slowly change over time, or even do heel acts without fully turning, like Roman, Punk, Fatu, Trick. Do you guys agree with this? Naomi is the only outlier I could think of in the last 2 years whose stock rose with a complete character change.
It's hard for me to wrap my brain around like that particular maybe qualifier for some of these versus the others. At least I won't bore people with like me trying to think about that and thinking about examples.
I think in two of these big examples you're taking with Cena and Orton at like this super high level of popularity that you tried to turn them, that was going to be fruitless ultimately. There was a lot of interest in turning Cena.
You're also talking about like in those particular, I'm assuming you mean the WrestleMania level programs. Like there could have been other influences, attached to the booking that has been at least suggested that may have robbed us of maybe like a pure Levesque vision. That might be possible as well.
I mean, the thing with the New Day is like everyone remembers the turn on Big E, but it's like that had been months of dissension that had been growing between Kofi and Woods. And it was the idea, is Woods going to turn on Kofi? Is Kofi going to turn on Woods? And then it was ultimately they came together and kicked out Big E. So it's like, it's not like they just turned them out of thin air. It was like, it had been this long lead up to that turn. And I think it went nowhere.
I mean, they were also maybe they had a hot angle in a dead division, like despite being maybe hot heels on that first day. Who are they ultimately going to feud with?
I mean, they came out of that. It was like everyone wanted, like when they did that turn, it was like the hope was, oh man, Big E's got to be cleared. He's got to be doing something here. I was like, no, this was like the full write-off of Big E from being an on-air contributor in the sense of a character on the show. And it was, a lot of it was just, they really didn't have much. They were in the tag division, but it was
tag division with like the War Raiders and Tozawa and Otis. I mean, like there's nothing you can do that is big when you don't have the opponents. Let's go to Dave, who says, didn't watch the show, but I saw the announcement for the John Cena Classic. You mean to tell me WWE has officially made the outcomes of matches completely irrelevant? You can't possibly look at me with a straight face and tell me this makes sense to you. Wrestling has never mattered less in this company. What an absolute nightmare. Okay. So clearly a very controversial announcement tonight. Now, I always like to take perhaps like situations like this and think about whether or not they'd be possible in the UFC, in MMA. Could such a thing exist on some sort of MMA, like the Ultimate Fighter, for instance, where
you don't even need that. There's a decent comparison is that they give out their bonuses at the end of the night, and there's always going to be a fight of the night, which is going to be the most entertaining fight of the night. However, there's also performance of the night bonuses. No loser is going to get a performance of the night bonus. But if
these are bonuses, they're not championships, I guess, in name, right?
Yeah, they're not championships, and they're also decided not. Well, I think they experimented it with like the odd event where people could actually vote on the bonuses, but generally it's the company that decides the bonuses. But yeah, it's like you vote on the fight of the night at the end of the night, and that's, it's sort of a way of awarding a guy that has lost but had a hell of a fight with someone.
Okay, so this concept is not completely ridiculous. There is like reality, in at least some comparisons, right? It's
just the idea of like handing a championship onto a guy that is
the championship part is where I think like they kind of lose me. The idea of a champion denotes you're the best at something. And if you happen to lose a match, clearly you cannot be the best at something. You can have a bonus, you can have a plaque, you can have an award, the John Cena award, the John Cena Star of Approval, like whatever. But to call it a championship with a physical title, I would assume, kind of makes it a little bit odd.
It also is giving like your audience the ability to tell the company that they got this one wrong. Like if you believe like you are the ones who should have the foresight of like who are our stars and be putting them in situations to go over in these situations. And we're saying, no, this is the guy that should be pushed.
I am very curious to see how they
who would be the champion of this show.
So you're asking like who's the best performer on the show?
Who is the best performer on the show? Who would be getting the John Cena championship tonight?
Could you say Jacob? Could you say
IYO?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, IYO.
I might lean towards Asuka for that post match if we're including everyone. Like who was the story of the show? I think in some ways it was Asuka.
Sure, yeah.
Or Kairi Sane. Kairi Sane is who everyone in this crowd might have voted for.
Yeah, but even that's kind of hard to determine because every match offers it like a different role for every single person. So
how's this going to work? Is that like at the end of the night they're going to like take your phone out, go to Club WWE where I'm sure this voting will exist.
Yeah,
and then you got to and then in real time they're going to just take the votes of like 12 people on the card and you pick one of them.
I guess so.
Hey, I want to see how this plays out. It might be a total disaster, and that's part of the appeal of it.
It might get you to sign up to Club WWE, John.
Do you want to know a true story? somebody signed me up for Club WWE without my knowledge. I just, like, someone put my email into it, and I get an email saying, congratulations, you're now on the wait list for Club WWE. I'm like, I didn't touch Club WWE.
Somebody? Sure. Okay.
So I'm on the wait list, and what's funny is that now I am getting sent WWE emails, which mysteriously I'd been blocked from. So it looks like I'm back to. At least I'm getting WWE promotional emails now.
You might get invite to those press conferences whenever they bring them back.
I just want to get to the members only lounge. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I'll sit down with Mark and Ari. We'll talk it out. All right, let's go next to Mike. Good evening, guys. Firstly, who's this Kyrie the fans are chanting for? Asuka has been valiantly fighting off Io and Rhea for months, all by herself. But apparently the fans would rather chant for made-up people. Anyway, Kyrie will be back in WWE within the year if these chants continue every show. I don't think these chants are going to continue, quite honestly. Rest of the show, fine opener, was a good one. And Cena announcement was hilarious as he was saying it's okay even if you lose. And I don't think he even gave a date for this thing, right? Danhausen stuff was embarrassing as usual, and the announcers selling it. And the TV time it's getting. Well, WWE has always had comedy, but this is indicative of going further away from wrestling. Question, what is next for Asuka and Io? I think the program's done, and I think the question is if Asuka's done, because it certainly felt like that tonight. And I would like to see Io get back on track into a program, whether it's on Raw or SmackDown. Well, I guess she's going to stay on Raw if you want Rhea on SmackDown. She needs to get back into the title picture. I think she's been separated from it from way too long. She is the best female performer on the roster. She's one of the best performers, period, on the roster. So, I think this whole period, it has taken her down several notches. That she should be one of the featured performers.
Yeah, I think it maybe shows how reliant she has been she's been reliant on Rhea Ripley to get TV time essentially. And it's not because IYO SKY isn't deserving of TV time, but it's because they need at least maybe one proficient English speaker to carry a lot of these storylines. Now, of course, they've been incredibly successful just using Io and Kyrie and Asuka on their own, but they seem to have exhausted that. And now without even Asuka around, potentially, how are they going to find that chemistry with IYO SKY? They kind of have to rebuild it with her and somebody else. Maybe Stephanie. Maybe Vaquer.
Oh, I thought you meant McMahon.
Yes, Stephanie McMahon can start managing IYO SKY. Maybe she can co-host the podcast with her.
Somehow I imagine Stephanie approaching IYO SKY and trying to make small talk with her, being similar to Medusa talking to the ninja.
My God.
Konnichiwa. How about some sushi? Okay, last one here. Eddie from New Jersey. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised by the show. Found it to be pretty entertaining. Happy to see Fatu look strong in defeat, and I thought the post-match angle was pretty good. Strong in defeat. That should be the slogan for the John Cena Classic.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Get your heat back. All right. So there you go. That was Backlash. Thanks, everyone, for the feedback. I will encourage everyone to go to the Post Wrestling Cafe tonight because Kate from Montreal and John Kleinchester have an extensive review of the Fairway to Hell edition of Collision. Did you at least get to see the look of this show or anything?
I have not seen anything of it yet.
It's kind of cool. It's done in this indoor SoFi Center where it's basically a ring set up and there's a golf course behind it. And so Darby and Pac literally went and had their match on the green, and they're doing spots into into the sand patch. And Darby did this absolutely insane dive, or he was throwing off this balcony, and it was a high balcony through these tables, and it was just insane. You definitely have to see this this match. But honestly, it was a really fun 60-minute show, and I really liked just the location change of just a place that looked different than anything else you're going to see a wrestling show on. This totally had a DDT vibe to it in some respects. Mark Davis won the national title on the show from Jack Perry with help from Ricochet. And so Jack Perry announced afterwards that for revenge, he's going to join Jericho in Stadium Stampede, and he's bringing Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks with him. So despite the tease of the Hurt Syndicate, it's going to be Jericho, Perry, Omega, and the Young Bucks against Ricochet, Toa, Khan, Mark Davis, and one other Don Callis family member for Spring Stampede or Stadium Stampede at Double or Nothing. They also announced Tekla, Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and Hikaru Shida in a four-way for the women's title at Double or Nothing. Will Ospreay is cleared after his neck adjustments by Marina Shafir, so he will face Ace Austin on Dynamite, and they're also going to reveal the brackets for the Owen Hart tournaments on Wednesday. What is not happening on Wednesday, they announced that Okada has had to go back to Japan for family business, and now it's going to be Darby Allin against Konosuke Takeshita for the AEW title on Wednesday, which might be the best match of Darby's entire run, which was added by one tonight with the match with Pac, to no one's surprise. But this title run, I don't know how long it's going to go, but this is going to be one of the most incredible series of matches to look back on, however long they last. Darby and Takeshita on Wednesday is going to be nuts. And the only weird thing on this show was throughout the Mark Davis, Jack Perry match, the director's microphone was open throughout so much of it. So it's like we're hearing him counting down to picture in picture, and then we're hearing him counting down to when we're coming back, or he give a line to Nigel for Nigel to say, and he's, let's react to this, guys. And it was just the weirdest thing, and it went on for 20 minutes at the beginning of this show. It was, at least on the My AEW feed, that I was hearing it, but very bizarre. I can't recall this, especially for a prolonged period of time, of hearing the director pretty clearly. But it was a very entertaining 60-minute show. They've talked about doing this annually, and I hope they do. I like different locations for wrestling, and it was a very good show. It was 4 matches in an hour and 15 minutes. They did an overrun, and Pac and Darby was really spectacular on top of it. So get the full rundown from Kate and John Kleinchester.
Sounds worth watching. Again, I think having an hour only, to devote to it is a great strategy for a WWE pay-per-view night where audiences may have already been somewhat exhausted.
It's way more palatable. And if this was a 2-hour show, I wouldn't even have sat down tonight to start it before we were recording. But an hour, that's...
And something novel, with a different type of visual, look to it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone, we're going to sign off. But yes, Collision Course is up on the Post Wrestling Cafe. Coming up Monday, we're going to have a new Post Pro Res from WH Park and Karen Peterson. And Way and I will be live Monday night for Rewind to Raw, where at the end of the show, I'm going to bow to Way, and then he's going to break character. And Way is going to head off for his 1-week vacation. My senpai, Mr. Ting.
That's it. I was told to... restructure and didn't really like it, so
and then we're gonna get the We Want Ting chance on so yes, we will have some guest co-hosts over the next week, but Wei Ting will be returning. He deserves a much needed vacation, and we have made sure the government of Canada will let him leave the country for a week. It was very touch and go.
I got it right here.
Oh, thank God. Was it an expensive rush job, or
it wasn't that bad? It's $75. Could have been a lot worse. I might have had to buy a new flight or something.
Well, that's
always check the expiry date of your passports.
It's a great rule to live by. Yeah. So we're gonna sign off. Everybody, check out postwrestling.com, and if you are so inclined, postwrestlingcafe.com. $8 a month gets you access to all of our many shows each and every week, including our recent Rewind Away covering Super Brawl 2 from February of 1992. We are continuing our Hulk Hogan Real American reviews. Episode 3 will be dropping this Tuesday with us chatting the Hollywood Hulk Hogan edition of the show. And also coming up this week, next week actually, will be myself and Eric Marcotte covering the Ronda Rousey Gina Carano Netflix card, which is taking place next Saturday night. We'll have a show out for Cafe members on Sunday as well, along with the XL portions of Rewind to Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown on a weekly basis with all of the news of the week, show reviews, and your feedback and questions.
Yeah, and also don't forget Daredevil Born Again Season 2 just wrapped up, and our friends Rich and WH and Nate Milton actually just covered the season finale over on MCU Later.
Yes, a big return on the season finale of Born Again, a very famous Marvel character reuniting with another character.
Is that so?
I apparently, I'm not allowed to talk about this for 16 years, but it was a good finale overall. New York, it's a It's, just like the book I'm reading, it's very appropriate for Daredevil Born Again, folks. The Bronx is burning, okay?
Ooh.
It's Daredevil versus Fisk.
What's the book about?
It's not about Daredevil. It's chronicling 1 year in New York City through all these different things that are going on from the perspective of the New York Yankees, Rupert Murdoch buying the New York Post, Ed Koch becoming the mayor of New York. It's a Summer of Sam. All these events. Yeah.
Wow.
Some light
I don't know how you found the time. Impressive.
I read it during the Danhausen matches. So, all right, everyone, we're going to say goodbye. That's it for us. Postwrestling.com. It's where you live and where you die.